Diablo 3 is the most highly anticipated Spanish-language game this summer. Plenty of old favorites are returning, including the Barbarian, Deckard Cain, and Diablo himself, along with some brand new original concepts and classes. Let me start off by saying that overall this game is turning out to be pretty great. My experience with the game so far is limited to the beta, so obviously this is premature, but the direction the design has taken is relatively clear to me at this point. But really, combat in Diablo 3 feels very substantial, weighty. I feel like my attacks have direct feedback. Compare this to Elder Scrolls where you smack each other with Nerf bats until one of you falls limp. My problem with the game comes in about tone. And no, I'm not talking about rainbows and Diablo, how colorful the game is. At least not entirely. I'm talking about the feeling I get from playing the game, or more specifically the feeling generated from particular aspects of the game. I don't think I could have a conversation about this without first talking about Leah.
It has begun.
According to our most studious Diablo lore masters, Leah is the daughter of the Dark Wanderer and Adria from the first game. The Dark Wanderer was retconned to be named Aiden, and the witch in the first game was retconned into being bizarrely forced to have more connection with the plot. Now, this is just speculation, so you can make your own conclusions, but you'd be wrong if it wasn't this one. My problems with Leah begin at the surface. She's a young, attractive, fashionable woman, and I hate it! Diablo 1 had a tone of loneliness, bleakness, and overall gloom. None of the characters, including who you played, were particularly attractive. They were all dirty-looking peasants who were fat, crazy, or both. This reflected the grim and ugly world the characters were set in. They, for the most part, had no time for beauty because
Bitch! Zombies coming up the hill right now! Shoot him in the head! Shoot him! His axe is on fire! He killed your parents! Shoot him in the head! Shoot him in the head!
Now, Diablo 2 came away from this a little bit, but I never felt things stand more out of place than Leah. Let's look at her fashion. First is the cute little bow in her hair. This might be totally adorable and totally in this season, but the presence of the bow right away says, beauty matters, function doesn't. But the bow itself is no big deal, fine, the character has a little fashion taste, we can handle that, but what about the rest? Here she is waking up from sleeping or something with perfectly parted, clean, and straightened hair, freshly cleaned and shaven face. She has a low-cut, fashionable, clean shirt that exposes her midriff just enough to get the jimmies rustled, but not enough to be able to avoid the necessity of Rule 34. High-heeled boots that I'm sure are fantastic to run in, a non-functional skirt that only seems to cover up the area her pants already do, but man, it looks adorable. To be clear, the point I'm making here has nothing to do with the fashion itself. It looks good, I guess, for a modern girl of our world. It's the world in which this is set is the problem. Remember, this is only 20 years after the original Diablo. Has typical commoner fashion really changed that much in this time? Last time I checked, undead are still rampaging across the world slaughtering stuff. I don't think fashion is the first thing in anyone's mind, so the theme of survival should trump fashion in both character design and plot. But let's look below the surface as well. Leah is a character that so far has no flaws. Not only is she pretty, she's also loyal, smart, and a philanthropist, and generally like the best person ever.
She won't give up on the idea of rescuing her uncle.
Where's the humanity to her? Sure, you could say she's kind of naive, I guess, but how is that a flaw if the universe doesn't punish it in some way? Maybe it will later, but I bet her fall will be almost completely out of her control. Now, maybe the reason the character is there is because she's trying to immerse the audience, because you can relate to her in some ways, but for me she does the opposite. Overall, compare this modern-looking, naive, cute girl going on adventures and totally rocking out the bad guys with your fucking eyes getting pecked out.
My name's Deckard Cain, and I come from Tristram. If you're looking for Diablo, then you just missed him.
None of this makes any sense to me.
In Diablo 1, there was a very clear distinction between magic and not magic. The warrior walked around slowly, swinging his drab sword, doing things that boring, stupid warriors should do, which is nothing except for swinging swords. Yeah, he could use magic too once he found the books that allowed it, but you knew mundane was mundane and magic was magic. In Diablo 2, this was stretched even further. Barbarians used shouts that straddled the border between magic and mundane, assassins used their own brand of dark magic, and everyone else pretty much were explicitly magic users. In Diablo 3, they just said fuck it. Within minutes, you have a full set of magical equipment using abilities that are either explicitly magic or basically magic no matter your class, and very quickly the feeling of magic being special or coveted is totally washed away. Let me remind you again, this is indeed the same universe as the first two games, and only a few years ahead of them. Your class abilities aren't where this ends though. Within the first few quests of Diablo 3 you gain the ability to use Town Portal, but it's not through using scrolls of Town Portal as it has been in the previous games. Now you may say that there's functionally no difference, and maybe you're right, but look at it like this. In Diablo 1 and 2, the characters are, like most of us, typical users of commercial airlines. They buy tickets, they sit down, you get to your destination, and that's it. Town portals are much like this. The scroll is your ticket, and the magic inherent in them takes care of the rest. By taking away the scroll middleman, you're making each character into a pilot with his own aircraft. And I fucking hate pilots. But look at the characters actually using the town portal. It's like they're casting some type of spell just using their own inherent power or something. And that's what flies in the face of what I feel is the charm of the first Diablo. Possibly the second as well. You are a nobody, a weakling, but you're brave, maybe foolhardy, and you're armed with some crap you probably found lying around or stole in the case of the obvious thief in the party. You aren't inherently magical, and you sure as hell aren't powerful. You gain that over the course of the game, slowly building from normal guy or woman into the hero that kills Diablo. In the previous games, you weren't automatically special no matter your class choice. You weren't rich, you weren't particularly strong, fast, or intelligent. You definitely didn't have any royal blood in you because that would totally ruin the whole rags to riches idea that anyone can pick up a sword or a bow and attempt to thwart the forces of Diablo and maybe even succeed.
In their tongue, he's Dovahkiin, Dragonborn.
So, again, according to the lore masters of Diablo 3, the warrior of the first game is now named Aerodynamic. He is now the son of the Skeleton King, who was barely even a thing in the first game. He actually was a random quest, so sometimes you fought him, sometimes you didn't. But if you did fight him, he said this amazing gem.
The warmth of life has entered my tomb. Prepare yourself, mortal, to serve my master for eternity.
Given how successful this line was in the past, of course, they brought it back for round 2.
You dare to bring the warmth of life into my tomb? You must die!
And while we're talking about it, how about a boss with some sharp teeth? In the first game, after a hard trek through the cathedral, you're rewarded with this badass.
Fresh meat.
Now, if you were like me, you got freaking owned by this guy. He was hard, and more importantly, he did not give a single shit about you. You were not even a person, you were goddamn meat. This line is great because it solidifies 2 things. 1, you are mortal. And 2, this world will eat you alive given the chance. The imagery shows human remains coating walls, and all of these things combined hammer in the dark tone of the game. Okay, back to the point. Remember our good friend Leah? Well, Senior Poop and Adria conceived Leah, this being after Aiden shoved the Diablo crystal into his face. Why am I bringing this up? Well, in the first and second game, there's no indication that there's anything special about the characters, other than their actions. They have no special power, blood, or money, but they still succeed. It's the classic American dream type of story, picking yourself up by your bootstraps, whatever those are, and getting shit done with your own 2 hands. Now, you can get help along the way, but no more help than the majority of us would get if we existed in Diablo land. By making the warrior a prince, they are ruining this idea. There's this implication that royal blood was needed in order to stop Diablo. Now, you can look back at the first game and see the warrior had no special advantages, but that just makes the retcon even worse. No one seems to know or care that he is the son of king, and so far, given that you re-kill the Skeleton King fairly early, the point seems to matter very little. In the end, it's an arbitrary change that at best only screws with the tone of the game for absolutely no gain at all. Actually, that describes pretty much everything I've said so far.
None of this makes any sense.
The final bit of tone I want to talk about here is the tension of the game. The tension between combatants and non-combatants, combat and non-combat. In Diablo 1, there's something really unsettling about Tristram. It could be the creepy music. Okay, that's pretty much it. But in addition to that, there was this tension there that arose from the lack of monsters around. Your enemies don't come up to the light of day, and thus are in the dark unknown. It's similar to how in a horror movie, the less you see of the monster, the more scary it is when it does happen to be around. This is part of the reason why this event in the beta is dumb.
Watch out! The wounded are turning!
This is killing business.
1, the monster is revealed, and then you quickly slaughter it. There's no tension there. There was no threat, evidently. 2, that Leah and the innkeeper are totally flippant about it. Leah's like, oh, they're turning. Do you see this often enough, Leah, to where turning is understood to mean becoming a zombie? If so, this must be a common, mundane thing for you, Leah. You're just so goddamn special, aren't you? And then the innkeeper is just like, zombies are bad for business. Really? These people used to live in this town. You were probably on a first-name basis with all of them, you fuck. Anyway, there's no tension here either. A little later, the blacksmith has a bunch of zombies and his wife in a cellar, and for some reason, it seems like no one cares. You can say there's uncertainty, I guess, but that just makes the situation worse that the people in this world can't learn how zombies work. This should be a pressing matter for the town, and the fact that it's not means that it's apparently not a big deal. If it's not a big deal, then why the hell should we care? Later on, the Skeleton King summons skeletons all around Deckard Cain, and Deckard actually weathers a few of their attacks before they move on to attack the player characters. Look, he goes into some fighting stance or some shit. That tension we got from the first couple games where we perhaps subconsciously thought, man, Cain is smart and stuff, but if a zombie got on him, he'd be dead, like, instantly. But no, he takes a few swipes from a sword and is not even phased. Not to mention he took a fucking meteor to the face and fell a few stories. Old men can't take that kind of punishment. Old men can't fall from standing without breaking some kind of hip.
I've fallen, and I can't...
And speaking of falling, look at the characters take a fall from the top of the screen, which appears to be at least 50 feet or so, and just land standing without taking any damage or getting splattered on the hard stone below. Why weren't there stairs to take? Do people really think Diablo characters should be badass superheroes who don't have to worry about gravity anymore? If gravity doesn't kill people, then we can't really relate to this silly world other than as a cartoon. And any sense of danger that we get from the world is just gone, along with the tension. Now, like I said before, this could be totally premature. Maybe this whole setup is an illusion devised by Satan, but barring that, the choices made in the portrayal of the world totally changed the dark tone of Diablo into something that is frankly like World of Warcraft. And do we need 2 World of Warcrafts? That isn't to say the game won't be entertaining, but just imagine the, in my opinion, awesome gameplay that Blizzard has created in a world where the characters seem mortal and have multiple dimensions. Leah, the innkeeper, and the other townspeople could display a level of psychological trauma from seeing friends and family turned into mindless murderers. Maybe Leah hates Deckard for all the trouble he brings her along for. Maybe she, or anyone, is conflicted about something. Imagine that being layered with the feeling of magic being special and it being hard to come by, and then townspeople being in awe of its appearance, but more than likely being totally afraid of it. And imagine that being layered with the threats of the game being mysterious and dangerous, and being in dark corridors and dark places and dark layers. And you never see them. They're not the kind that tell you their plans at the beginning.
My minions will find the stone. Wherever you choose to hide it.
Just imagine that and put that on top of the gameplay of a game they've created, and yeah,